Now, if I had Calvin Ridley to go with Kyle Pitts, and now I introduce Treylon Burks, all right, now we're talking. Now I'm interested.
So here at the Draft Network, we have a little bit of a divide between the scouts on wide receiver Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. Joe, what is your grade on him, and what are you differing from the other scouts here?
I've got a first-round grade on Treylon Burks, and listen, I understand all of the concerns that Kyle and Keith might have with Burks, but for me, it's all about betting on traits. This guy's going to be 6'2", 6'3", 225, 230 pounds. He's wearing a 4XL size hand glove, right? I mean, this guy has the size. He's explosive, and he's a guy that when you watch him at Arkansas, you quickly gain this appreciation that you know he's the best player on their team, and they know he's the best player on the team. It's kind of like watching high school football, where they just try to find every way imaginable to get him the football, whether that's obviously throwing it to him, they'll run it, they'll let him throw it, they'll use him as a kick returner, they'll use him as a punt returner. He's a do-it-all player that has big playability and plus size and athleticism. I understand that he's a bit underdeveloped as a route runner for sure. You guys have heard me talk about that, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But as we just kind of get into this conversation with Burks, for me, simply put, it's buying into traits and that playmaking ability.
And Kyle, you're going somewhere else with this?
So I'm in the middle a little bit because I know Keith's got him as a solid 2. I've got him as a high 2, and Joe's got him in the first round valuation. As far as, in a vacuum, what is this player's valuation? What's the risk assessment? Because we evaluating for all 32 teams, we're doing more risk assessment. It's less about scheme fit because we don't have a scheme. We're trying to grade for all 32 schemes. But I look at Burks and I understand Joe's perspective. The tools here are off the charts good as far as the potential that he has. But we talk so much about fit, and we talk so much about systems and landing spots and how it matters for players. And I'm thinking about Treylon Burks, and I'm thinking about him being an underdeveloped receiver, and everybody wants to point to Deebo Samuel, right? Because Deebo, he was used in all the same ways as South Carolina. Deebo was a monster running routes. Yeah. Deebo went to the Senior Bowl and was a monster running routes. So he came into the league with a higher floor as far as what he is as a receiver. And I don't think we're expecting Treylon Burks to be put in the backfield and run that inside toss that San Francisco has run with Shanahan. Like, that's not going to be stuff that's put on his plate. But that's kind of the expectation that's being formed here for Treylon. And that's where I just get apprehensive. Like, whoa, these are two totally different players. And if you put Treylon Burks in an area where he has to be wide receiver 1, I'm pretty concerned about what that's going to look like for the first couple years. And that's why I kind of am in the middle on him.
Yeah, I agree. So when I initially watched him, that's why I came in so low on him, because you didn't see those pure wide receiver traits that talk about being a number 1 wide receiver, right? His production in Arkansas was manufactured production. It was something similar that you would see to a small slot wide receiver. They were just getting him the ball a lot at Arkansas because, like you said, Joe, he was their best football player. Yeah. If they wanted any opportunity to score on offense, they had to put the ball in Treylon Burks' hand. But when you talk about him transitioning to the NFL and they're going to put him on a boundary, put him at X wide receiver, he has things that scare me. Yes, he's a big, strong, fast guy, but can he get off of the release when he's getting press coverage? That scares me. And we've seen these wide receivers in the past, right? We've seen Inkel Harry where he had his issues, right, playing the X wide receiver. We've seen Kevin White, who was a high traits guy.
Man, he was so good at West Virginia.
And he just continued to struggle. So that's what worries me. I like the upside, but I'm not sure if I can draft this guy in the first round and say, you know what, I expect him to be my number 1 go-to target in the NFL.
I've got all the same concerns you guys have. And we were walking over this morning, and I said, I don't think I've ever seen Treylon Burks just win a route, right? Just win a route, get open, catch a football. And for me, part of the whole bet on traits also extends to the team that he goes to, understanding that you can't just ask him to be your X receiver and funnel the passing game through him and have a high volume of traditional throws to him. Now, I think that can come. Obviously, he has all the ability in the world to develop into that type of player. He's not there right now. And so when I think about an offense that's pretty established, that has a couple of top receivers, a good tight end, like there's good things around him that you can introduce this skill set and use him in ways that he was used at Arkansas, which is, hey, go run a go ball route, right? Run the 9 route. We're going to throw it up to you. We're going to have you work into space. We're going to get you the ball. We're going to ask you to work after the catch. And I think he can be a really, really nice piece of the offense as he grows into a more expanded role. And so for me, I'm not going to love Treylon Burks for every team, just like I don't love a lot of these quarterbacks for every team. Right. If you need a savior at quarterback, I'm sorry, stay away from these quarterbacks. But if you want an X factor for your offense and you're in position to add that type of skill set, I can get behind it.
Can I jump in here real quick? Because I think what really dialed me in, and I think this is kind of perhaps the happy medium here, is you talked about the environment that he's going to, and I was in my head, I'm like, okay, hit him between the eyes and ask him where the ideal landing spot is and where the doomsday scenario landing spot is. But the way you phrased it, it almost reminded me of how the Seahawks used DK Metcalf in year 1. Mm-hmm. And that was a player that had not very developed routes. He played in the Phil Longo offense, right? It was a lot of very elementary routes, slants and goes.
More developed than Burks, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of the case in point, is that usage for him year 1 was slants and goes. And you had Tyler Lockett, and you had a high-level quarterback, and you had a team that was dedicated to running the football to continue to manufacture, one high safety look. So you got one-on-one on the outside, and this dude's just 6'4", 235, and he runs a 4.3. So I guess I would piggyback off of that, and I would say I can see where your vision is for him, but what's the realistic expectation in year 1, and what's a place that you think could provide that for him?
It's a good question. I think, again, this does come back to the team. And so if you look at, the easy choices for me is going to be Buffalo, right, where you have a really good situation, obviously, with the offensive infrastructure, but you have Diggs, you have Gabriel Davis, you're going to have something in the slot, probably Cole Beasley, you have Dawson Knox, and now you introduce Treylon Burks and you say, hey, we really like what Gabriel Davis did for us in year 1, where all Gabriel Davis did in year 1 was win with size and ball skills down the field in a high-volume passing offense that featured 10 personnel. And he wasn't asked to beat press coverage and win routes with consistency. It was, hey, Josh Allen's probably going to escape to his right a fair amount. We need you to kind of just roll with the scramble drill, and we're going to get you the ball.
Head to the back pylon, throw the mailbox up.
Yeah. And then you think about, okay, well, I've been preaching for years about yards after catching the Bills' offense and how it's just not a big enough thing. Well, all right, now how about a skill set like Treylon Burks, who's not necessarily the jitterbug little slot guy that the Bills have had, right? They've had that type of player where the yards after catch still hasn't been there with that. Like, you have a big body guy for Josh Allen that's going to be physical with the ball in his hands. To me, that's the right type of environment for him to go into. I'll introduce Green Bay into that conversation. If Aaron Rodgers is back, will they do it? Will they pick a receiver in the first round? Who knows? But if they're going to, they should be thinking about Treylon Burks and introducing him into that offense where they like to throw the ball to the running backs. You've got Devontae Adams, who's surely going to be back, right? There's no way that if Aaron Rodgers is back, Devontae Adams isn't. Mm-hmm. I like those more established offenses for him. Kansas City. I mean, we talk
the problem is all these teams in the late 20s.
I was just about to say that was the issue that I was going to get into. We're talking about a good player going to a great team. A lot of those guys would thrive, but we're talking about now a good player going to a bad team. So this guy is projected to be a top 10, top 15 guy.
This is where I get nervous.
So that's what I'm talking about. So that's why we're having a conversation, right? Let's talk about it. We're talking about the Falcons. Do you love them there? Not really. The Giants. Do you love them here? Not really. The New York Jets.
If you told me Calvin Ridley and Kyle, he'd be like, okay, in Atlanta.
That's true.
Calvin Ridley ain't coming back.
He's going to need an established quarterback.
Right, so that's a perfect example. Do not go to Atlanta and expect that you have your number one receiver that's going to come in and fill in for Calvin Ridley. Now, if I had Calvin Ridley to go with Kyle Pitts, and now I introduce Treylon Burks, all right, now we're talking. Now I'm interested. But no. He can't come in and be like, okay, this is the guy. Oh, no. That's not
the popular spot. They need the weapon.
That's not the stuff I'm talking about.
It'll be interesting to see what teams actually need him and think that he fits into their scheme. The big hands you mentioned. It'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. We'll see where he goes in the draft at the end of April.